Good morning, grandchildren. This is probably number 8, perhaps. At any rate, I have one of those apocryphal stories for you. An apocryphal story is a story that has quite a history and has made the rounds among people for years, but may or may not be really true. But this is a great story. It's one of those funny stories that musicians love to tell. The most famous trombone solo of the jazz year was Tommy Dorsey's "I'm Getting Sentimental Over You." La da 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 da. At any rate, very famous Tommy Dorsey song, and every trombone player knows it. Well, it turned out that in L.A., Los Angeles, 3 of the top L.A. trombone freelancers found they had a weekend free. They didn't have a gig, and they decided the 3 of them would go up to Northern California, find a cabin somewhere, and just fish and drink and play cards for 3 days. Supposedly it was Dick Nash, Dick Noel, and Hoyt Bohannon, 3 of the most wonderfully famous, brilliant players of all time. They were the guys that did all the recording sessions for, Frank Sinatra and so forth, and they were brilliant. If you ever find a chance to find a recording called "All My Friends Are Trombone Players," directed by Tommy Peterson, you'll get to hear them playing at their very best. At any rate, they went off to this cabin and drank and played cards and caught fish, and they're on their way back to LA, and they're in the car, and they haven't bathed or shaved or anything. They probably look like homeless individuals. And they come to this roadhouse, and they walk in, and there's a band playing the roadhouse, a kind of a big band, led by a trombone player. And so they get together in the back table there and discuss among themselves. And Hoyt Bohannon goes up to the lead trombone player and says, "Gosh, could you do me a favor? There's a famous trombone solo. I can't remember who did it, but it's one of the most famous. And the trombone player who fronts the band says, "Do you mean perhaps I'm Getting Sentimental Over You" by Tommy Dorsey?" And Dick Nash says, "Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir. Would you play that for us?" And he goes back to the table, and the guy says, "No problem." He kicks it off and plays a very presentable job of it. So Dick Nash goes up to him and says, "That was really great. I appreciate it. Thank you. Could I see your trombone for a second? Take a look at it?" The guy says, "Sure," he has. And he says, I played trombone a little back in high school. Would you mind if I tried to play it a little bit?" And he goes up on stage and says, "Let's do that again. Sentimental. Here it is. 1." And he kicks it off and plays the absolute heck out of it, just spectacularly, with the band and the trombone player sitting there watching and saying, "What the hell is this?" And so Dick Nash finishes, and the crowd applauds. He's standing there holding the guy's trombone and says, "I wonder if anybody else in the crowd here plays trombone. Hey, fella, come over." And Dick Noel comes over, and he says, "Do you play trombone?" And Dick Noel says, "No, I played some accordion back in high school. Why don't you try it?" He hands the guy's trombone to Noel. Noel steps on the stage, 1, 2, kicks off the band and plays it again, just as flawlessly, with more improvisations and more fantastically. Now the trombone player is really, really getting disturbed. And Noel finishes and takes the horn and says, "Let's see if we can find somebody else." And he calls up Hoyt Bohannon. Hoyt Bohannon comes in. Remember, they all look like dumpster, and says to Hoyt Bohannon, "Do you play trombone?" And Bohannon says, No, I'm a lobster, but I don't." He says, "Why don't you try it?" He gives it to Hoyt Bohannon. Hoyt Bohannon kicks it off again and plays the whole solo up an octave higher than the original solo, which is itself very, very high. And then they hand the trombone back to the guy who's standing there in shock, and they race out of the place fast.